Hey guys, welcome to the Macro Trader Update, where every day I talk about macro news, go through charts, and then just kind of give you guys an update of how the overall market is doing. So today is Monday, March 18th, and for today, we're going to be talking a little bit about a real estate development that I heard about on Friday and just actually made some news today. We'll talk a little bit about the futures trading, just because right now at the time of recording, it's almost like 8 o'clock Eastern time right now, and most of the markets aren't open. I got a couple of things to do for work later today, so had to shoot this video a little bit earlier. And then the other open markets are crypto, and so we'll take a look at how Bitcoin is doing technically. And then finally, our favorite, Solana, and how that's doing. Solana's been on a tear, so I'll take a look at the chart, and then we'll see what kind of resistance and what Solana is doing from a technical perspective. So let's dive in. So I think this is a really big change for the real estate industry, and honestly one of my biggest gripes for real estate. So the National Association of Realtors agreed to pay $418 million settlement for groups of home sellers who basically they were saying that they were fucking them over and that they've been doing for decades on basically the realtor fees. So I think some of you guys know, and some of you guys who are my age trying to buy houses or sell houses, the industry standard is that the seller pays both their broker fee and then the buyer's broker fee as well too. So that's in the 5 to 6% range. And if with home prices nowadays, you guys, that could be in tens of thousands of dollars now just in kind of the realtor fees. So the first major change is that buyer brokers now are able to enter directly in agreement with buyers. This could mean is that buyers can go in alone, or they can just hire a lawyer to review the deal versus hiring an agent completely. I've always, and we've always thought this as well too, sometimes like we do a lot of the legwork and we go through houses and then we take a look and we send it to our realtor, but then they end up taking a majority of the cut of the fees, basically for us doing some of the work anyway. So I think this is a good change. I've always been the proponent of, directly dealing with buyers and sellers and kind of removing the middleman for this piece. So I think that first piece is really important. I think that's a plus for me. The next major change is that agents' compensation won't appear in the listing portals. So this ensures that the buyer agents don't choose listings that show their clients based on how much they make. So I think this is also critical, and I think this levels the playing fields. Maybe some of the homes that didn't have, or people trying to sell homes that didn't have really high fees weren't being selected by some agents, but now that won't be listed when an agent is kind of looking through that. So I think that's another positive win for the industry and really positive for just sellers in general, along with buyers as well too. So I think this kind of does a good job of making it a little bit more fair in real estate. I still think the closing costs and some of the fees associated with the loans are also ridiculous as well too, and that's probably one of the reasons why I haven't entered real estate yet. But I think this is moving in kind of the right direction. So Tyler from the Water Coolest kind of goes and he talks about the fallout of this. So it seems obvious, but maybe, there could be a 30% fall in commissions over the coming years. And this could be also really bad for real estate agents as well too. And we could probably see, a drop of the number of agents by like 60% or so. So I think this affected shares of Zillow. As Tyler mentioned, it was down 13% on Friday. And I think this is just a really good shakeup for the real estate industry. I think that it's kind of been a model that's a little bit too old and kind of archaic. So I'm glad that, people are moving over and we're making some changes from a legislative perspective and making this a little bit more fair of a buying process for folks. Because I think that's been driving up a lot of the pricing for homes, and as the price homes increase, agents are making more money. So I think this will help folks. We have a lot of friends who aren't like making a lot of money and they're struggling to find homes and buy homes and affordable homes, and home affordability is just kind of crazy for people just starting out a family or people wanting to buy their first homes. We hear a lot about people buying like multiple homes and stuff already, but people nowadays are struggling just to buy their first home, and we're kind of in that bucket as well too. So obviously, I know this news is kind of new, and we'll kind of see how this kind of shakes out with the real estate industry. Me personally, I've been waiting for real estate to be purchased on the blockchain. I know that Texas has been doing some of that as well too, and who knows? I don't know. Maybe the development of that will kind of accelerate, and maybe by then, or when we're ready to buy a home, we could probably maybe buy it with Bitcoin or buying it on the blockchain. So that's my hope, anyways. So the next thing I wanted to cover with you guys this morning is just the futures. So right now we have the S&P 500 futures up right now on CNBC. Right now, futures for the S&P 500 are up 0.64%, which is good. So it's almost up like a whole percentage overnight. For those who you aren't familiar with futures, so futures is contract based as well too. Similar to options, there's leverage and there's capital efficiencies with futures as well too, as we talked in our last deep dive. But the great thing about futures is that there's extended trading hours. So for futures, I think there's only a 1 hour break Monday through Friday during 5 to 6 o'clock. And then the markets open back up again after 6 p.m. and they trade overnight as well too. On Fridays, they close, I believe, at 6 o'clock and then are closed all the way until 6 p.m. on Sunday when they open again. So on Sunday at 6 p.m., that's part of my routine and my weekly routine is to kind of just look at the futures accounts and how the indexes are doing on Sunday. And so that gives me kind of it's not always accurate, it's not always perfect, but it kind of gives me a good market sentiment and see how things are going. If the market is up like 1 or 2% overnight in the futures, that means that that momentum is probably going to continue on into the trading day when the market opens at 9:30 Eastern time. If, the market is in a slump and it's down like 1 to 3% overnight, that kind of gives you a good indication that there's something going on in the market as well too. So I use the futures market as kind of my canary in the coal mine, and that kind of gives me a good grasp of what's happening in the market. If you're really interested in trading and just seeing how and getting a little bit more of an edge, futures contracts and expiries are great. So CNBC is one way you can take a look at it. I usually take a look at the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ futures just to see how both of those are doing. You have a Fidelity. On the Fidelity dashboard, you can actually go in there, and then if you're using Fidelity, you can see that there's a markets tab right here, and it shows you the NASDAQ futures are up 0.85%, and then S&P futures are up about that 0.5% that we mentioned. If you are on Robinhood, and if you are also on Robinhood, you can type in QQQ to see the NASDAQ, how the NASDAQ's trading overnight. As you can see, the market is up about almost 1% overnight on the Qs. And then if you put in SPY for S&P 500, you can see how everything's been trading overnight, and it's about 0.75%. So I think there's a little bit of a disparity between some of the numbers. Everything is, we've seen from 0.5 on Fidelity all the way to 1 point something on the NASDAQ as well too. So a little bit of difference and divergence from some of the values, but just kind of look at the overall trend of it, up 0.5% or up 1% or down 1%. That's usually where you take a look at this. So that's just a little bit of a take for you guys on futures. What I do is I actually trade futures on CQG. So CQG is just where I do my options trading right now. Just to kind of give you guys a quick overview, I have crude oil, I have gold, and then I have Bitcoin futures right now. I use Phillips Capital as my broker as well too. And then I can also go in here and look at the NASDAQ and then see some of the NASDAQ futures in here as well too. So a couple of options. I'll put in the link down below for you guys for where you guys can take a look at some of these for the futures account, and just a good area and just a couple of things you can take a look at from looking at futures. So next, taking a look at Bitcoin, let's see how it's doing technically. So right now we had these 9 and 13s, and this caused, so now it's kind of consolidating or on a downtrend. We have a bot 4 for a buy countdown, indicating a couple more days of consolidation or a downtrend. Our RSI right now is kind of in the oversold territory, so we could see a bounce here from Bitcoin. Looking over at the daily chart right now, we do have some support at 66,000 right here and about 64,000. Some major targets support anyways are 62,000 and then 60,000. If we break some of these, which I don't think it looks like from the chart, then we'll be in for a little bit more concern. But I think right now it's just kind of consolidating and just probably taking a pause. I think, as some of you guys know, we mentioned on Friday's daily update, Jem Cresson mentioned that some of the options expiry is going to be at this end of the month. So that's when some of the flows kind of discontinue or the buying is not there anymore. So that kind of lets go of the purchasing or what's keeping the market afloat, and we could see some digestion of the market. So right now, not too concerning for Bitcoin. On the weekly chart, we have 75,000 still as an upper target, and we are just kind of slightly in the overbought territory, which is not too concerning. So again, it's trading right now at 68,000. We did have that major down day last week, about 7%, but kind of things are holding up pretty well, and nothing too alarming here from Bitcoin. So Solana's up, on the daily chart, 3% right now. Solana, had a great week last week and into this week and over into the weekend. We had these nines that hit right here on the daily chart, but then it blew past those. As you guys know, I mentioned, it's kind of how the market reacts to some of these DeMark signals as well, too, also gives you a good indication. So if this would have sold off, we would have known that the market's not so strong, but basically Solana blew past some of these levels even after that nine. So indicating, the market is still very, very strong right now, and the demand for Solana is still very high. From a support level, we have some of these on the daily of $185 right now for support, and then some upper targets at $216. Looking at the daily chart, I think things look very constructive still for Solana, and we were saying that it was going to probably hit that $200 mark, and it actually did it much faster than I thought it was going to be. So just because I think all of these meme coins are pumping on Solana, I think a lot of the attention is going to be in Solana. I know that some of the portfolios that I also follow for research, and they're major portfolios that are putting some serious money, have just heard about Solana. So I still think that that's probably going to be the trend. More institutional grade folks are in wealth management groups, and people with a lot more capital are just starting to hear about Bitcoin and how it's performing, and then hearing about Solana and some of the other cryptos as well too. So I still think this run is going to be still going. I do think some of my targets going to be $400-$500 anyways before I start taking anything off the table. And then looking at the hourly, we do have some resistance here at 212. And I think we do have a major support at 194. And I think it should be holding some of these levels here. And then on the weekly chart right now, we have some resistance on the top at 220. And then this major one at $243 on the weekly chart. The weekly chart looks really constructive. RSI just, bottomed out and hit our oversold territory, and now it's heading up. So again, I still think we have another week or two of really good momentum for Solana, and hopefully we'll be touching this resistance at 243 in the next week or two. Solana did have a great week. The week before, it was up almost 40% last week, and then moving into this week, we're up about 3% already. So constructively, Solana still looks really, really strong. Even adding at the $125 range was a good add for us in our long-term portfolio. So that was a really good add as well too. Sometimes now I try to get that thinking of something's too expensive. Same thing happened to Nvidia and some of the other MicroStrategy as well too. It just seems expensive on the relative perspective, but looking at these charts, you can definitely see that these things can run much higher than it is, or it can be. So that's all that I have for today. Thank you for joining me, guys, for this earlier morning one. I hope you guys have a good day trading, investing, and just your overall day in general. I'll catch you guys tomorrow, and good luck with everything.